Our problem is not pricing, it's efficiency. That
Yeah,
requires completely different tactics to solve.
right. And then you don't risk churning good customers. Like that's the risk of like if you just crank all the prices up, well then maybe
You
you
can't
lose
push
some
them
great customers.
forever.
Right, right. So you can't really charge them for your mistakes in a way. Hello, everybody. My name is Dean. I'm one of the co-founders and CRO of Steelhead, and this is Shop Talk. So, Shop Talk is for those that have dedicated their livelihood to the craft of manufacturing. And today we have a very special guest, Dina Wing from Precision Spray and Coatings in Texas, Houston, Texas, where the weather is a little hotter than it is here up in Minnesota. But just a touch. But Dina, maybe starting off with you, could you explain Precision Spray at the high level, what you guys offer, and then
Sure,
also like kind of how you got involved with Precision Spray, maybe what you were doing before, and kind of what your role is now.
absolutely. So Precision Spray and Coatings is a mid-sized industrial hard metal coating company. We do chrome coating, electroplating in six 30-foot deep tanks and another six 15-foot tanks for smaller parts. And then we also do HVOF spray. We have several booths for spraying carbide, chrome carbide, that kind of thing. We recently expanded into a new building that is about to come online, which has added plasma spray capacity to our offerings, and we are doing spray infused now. And then we have all the attendant machining capabilities, so polishing, honing, grinding, ball lapping, that sort of offering. So it's pretty focused on wear and corrosion resistance and any function that can help us manage those parts.
Yeah, and pretty intensive in the oil and gas. Obviously, in Texas, a lot of people lean oil and gas, but what parts are these actually like? What oil and gas parts are there? Like, is it like deep sea rigs? Is it pipes? Is it like fracking
All over the place.
operations?
So that leads to a question of like how this company has changed over the past 5 years. So when I first started in 2021, this place was like 95% drilling, like
Mm.
specifically rotors for from power sections, reworking those. I don't know how familiar everyone will be with that specific niche product line, but rotors,
Mhm.
mandrels, housings, that kind of stuff. So it was almost entirely focused on the drillers, who a lot of them headquarter just north of our facility, and then we
Mm.
have a very short trip, short by Texas standards at least, to the Permian Basin, which is where most of this is happening. Um, since then, we have made a very concerted effort to diversify out of just drilling. So rotors has dropped to maybe 50% of our offering. It's still the backbone of the company. And we're very good at those. But we've added ball valve um, customers, and that's more, I suppose that's more downstream because there's a lot more of like the processing of oil and gas rather than the
Mm.
collection of oil and gas. There's more of the deep sea rigs. We've started touching those. We've started touching some mining customers, very limited because a lot of that is very large stuff and our infrastructure isn't ready to handle it yet. And then we're getting into turbines and power generation, um, hydraulic parts. So we've added all of these product lines. Um, really within the last 2 to 3 years. We've been ramping up. Rotating equipment just started this year. Ball valves, we really went from zero to a significant percentage of our company within the last year and a half.
Wow. Okay, so you made a little pivot there. And I guess Dina, what was your experience before? Have you always been in oil and gas, or have you always been in manufacturing, or how did you get to be, I would say, a very strong leader at Precision Spray? How did you get here?
It's actually kind of a funny story because My education is in literature. I had absolutely no job
Wow.
prospects or intentions of going into manufacturing when I was coming out of school. It wasn't a thought in my mind. But the president of the company that I work for, John Jenkins, uh, he, I knew him not socially, but he had worked with family members. I knew him outside of that. And when the previous company we both worked for was setting up a facility, an expansion out of the country, and I had lived in that country and was comfortable and familiar with the people there and how to operate there, he hired me as like kind of I was like the second hire. So it was like I would do customer service, I was the receptionist, I did all the things, supply chain, whatever. Whatever they needed from me, I learned how to do. And I was there for 3 years, and that was a manufacturing company that manufactured power sections.
Mm.
So that's why my understanding of the rotor business and all the attendant needs for those parts is very strong because that was my first job. That's what I did. So I get those. I got real deep into how those work, what those require in terms of quality needs and that kind of thing. So I worked there, and then we went through COVID. During COVID, precision spraying coatings was, and pre-COVID, was run by the original guy who started the place. And it was a smaller business, a more focused business. And when oil kind of went negative for a minute during COVID, this facility very nearly closed.
Oh wow.
This company almost went out of business because they were so reliant on the drillers, and the drillers were not drilling. So they got close. So the original owner sold a large part of his stake to a board of investors, and that board brought John in, who had worked for several of the different OEM manufacturers and kind of had a very strong grasp of the drilling customers, but also a plan for how to diversify. Uh,
Mm.
John then, very shortly thereafter, called me, and I had been hoping to move back from the Middle East. So um, I took the job, and here we are. And I started mostly just customer service, but I have been adding additional responsibilities ever since.
Wow. So you started off at precision spraying customer service.
Mhm. And not even as customer service manager, I was just a representative. I was basically the account like primary point of contact for all of our rotor customers. And then over the last 5 years, I took a manager role. So I picked up responsibility for the rest of the team and all the different product lines. Then I think he gave me planning. So I started planning all of the work running through the shop. Then it was the Steelhead implementation, and all of the processes and work alongside that. So I still am the primary power user for Steelhead, and any changes we make, I drive that. And then within the last year, when I got the director of business planning and operations title, we added supply chain and IT.
Nice. So just keep adding and adding and adding
Like outside of my actual like written job description, I've been just putting my nose in everyone's business and working data analysis and all kinds of stuff. So I'm a very nosy person. I want my hands in everything.
Yeah, which is good. I think to understand the whole picture so you can start to make better strategic decisions. Now, speaking of that, one of them was you sound like you're in drilling and you kind of pivoted out of it or actively or made a concerted effort to diversify, which is obviously, I think, a good idea in hindsight. You guys have been doing really well. The it's one thing we see often in Texas, especially, but also like in the automotive industry, and is like people kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, "Hey, as automotive rides or dies, we ride or die," or as oil and gas, goes up and down, we're just gonna ride along with it. But it seems like you guys have a different approach. Like you're not gonna just fall if one market falls, right? So where does that come from? Like that I guess that competitiveness to adapt. And then how do you actually do it?
So I think it's large part driven by our management. Like John, we are very lucky to have a president who thoroughly understands what this facility is capable of, and has the ability to match that to a variety of industries that they'd never looked at before. So the ball valve expansion specifically, that's a lot of very specific operator knowledge. Like a lay person or a regular grinder is not going to be able to just start doing that without any problems. The machines are very specific, the skills are very specific. So we had started trying to do it, like I said, a year and a half ago. We had like our first order, and we were trying so hard to get this order through, and we had a heck of a time. And we were searching for people. So this is the kind of business where personal expertise
Mm,
is it is the business. And we managed to find some extremely talented people who had previously worked for a company that at one point was the leader in the space.
mm,
That company went out of business for various reasons that I'm going to go deeply into, but we managed to pick up um, salesperson, sort of a product line manager, and QC inspector, several operators who had all had that experience, who knew the customers, who knew the machines and what was needed. So we just kind of went on a scavenger hunt finding those people that could fill those roles. And we found the first one, and she was extremely valuable, and kind of led us to the rest of them. And since then, it's sort of skyrocketed. We went from like maybe doing one order, and like we started trying in 2024 and we're not succeeding. And Kelly started in 2025, and we went from like 50 to $100,000 of ball valve revenue. In June, we did $500,000 of ball valve revenue.
wow.
And that's with a limited number of machines shoved in a small corner of our current facility, and not even all of the different spray options that we're planning to have in the new building. So the new building is adding the plasma spray, and now we've just started doing the spray and fuse, and like we don't even have all of like there are CNCs that we could add to like take more of this. There is so much runway. To get more and more of this business, because what we found is that after the company that used to kind of do all this went out of business, there's like two people that do it in the United States, and then everybody else sends their stuff to China or Italy,
Mm,
which isn't cheap.
yeah.
It
Yeah,
takes a lot
shit.
of time.
Yeah, long lead times, expensive freight.
And a lot
But
of this stuff is the kind of equipment where if you take it out of where it is, that's a whole facility shut down, like
mm,
millions of dollars per hour of shutdown time. So we've struggled with, rapid response. That's kind of what we're focusing on, other than just expanding our offerings and getting all of the customers to approve us and put us on their AVLs. It's just response time is huge for these customers. It's the same with power generation. They want it in 2 days. And this is kind of work where we have to remove the old coating, uh, prep the part, make it shiny and straight and clean and beautiful and new, spray whatever, or chrome plate, finish grind to whatever RA is required while keeping, and some of these tolerances are intense now. All of the rotor stuff is a thousandth of an inch, half a thou at the worst. We would have several thousandths of tolerance. And with these new product lines, it's literally tenths of an inch, or tenths of a thousandth. Yeah. So 0.0001.
wow. Wow.
So that's been a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, so extremely high quality, extremely fast turn times. and I'm sure that leads to, if you can pull it off, some great revenue.
Yeah, those are nice. The margins on those are pretty nice.
Pretty nice. So Dina, there's that's amazing. And I'm guessing you were able to make this determination to diversify based on some slowing sales numbers and the original drilling market, or maybe you've seen it in the news and then made that call. So very successful strategic decision. And I would say, this is my opinion, you are inside of Steelhead, I think put on a pedestal to some degree, based on your, I think your superpower is, well, A, you're always willing to dig in and figure things out and like get the most possible out of the company or Steelhead, which can be the one and the same. In my opinion, your superpower is data analysis. And I think that comes in many different vectors, but one of them is one of them is, I think, job costing. And another one could be like tracking the quality that you mentioned, or another one could be the idle parts, like knowing what parts are sitting. So maybe just if you could explain at the highest level, like when Dina Wing walks in at 8 a.m. or the first day of the month or the first day of the quarter or the first day of the year, like what are you thinking about? What are you looking at? What's your approach to data analysis today?
All right. That's a hard problem because it's changed so much over the course of this year. I mean, pre-Steelhead, so we've been with you guys since 2024. Before that, I would start every day with 2 hours of pulling every single clock in that anyone had done and putting that manually into a spreadsheet so I understand who had touched what part and where everything was and how long, much longer it was going to take for every single part in this facility. And like right now we have, I don't know, 800, 900 active work orders. It was less then, but most of those work orders have multiple parts on them. So just a huge number of objects rotating through this facility. And it would take me 2 hours every morning just to do that, just to collect the information, not even go to make decisions.
Wow.
Um, so the blessing of Steelhead is it has reduced friction in the company from like our regular operators are people who aren't really great with computers, uh, putting their data in. So labor hours, clock ins. I'm not saying we're great. We're not great at it. Our data integrity is not where I want it to be, but we're improving and we're doing things every week to see what else we can make easier for them. Like where have has management failed to serve our employees so they can give us the data that I want, right?
Hmm.
So now, I mean, the beginning of my month and the end of my month are very different things. The beginning of the month, I'm doing data analysis of like a post-mortem of the previous month. I want to know how many corrective actions we went through. I want to know how many returns we had to deal with. I want to know what our cost of poor quality was. How much opportunity cost are we wasting on parts that we're not getting any sales from because we messed up? Um, what is the source of those mess ups? Like, do we have a pricing problem or do we have a quality problem? So recently we've added several KPIs. That's been my project all year, has been putting into place all these KPIs, actually discussing them on a monthly basis and really generating action items and objectives based on how we did instead of based on sort of, I feel like we could probably fix this thing over here if we did these 5 tasks. We're trying to move away from, well, I think it's this, to here, look at these numbers. Explicitly, these numbers are what the problem is. So, for instance, last month we had our best month of on-time delivery in 11 months. Uh,
Wow.
Still not where I want it to be, mind you, but it's
Yeah.
provably better. We had an improvement of how many returns that came in, but we had a significant drop in first pass yield. obviously, we were catching our quality escapes before they escaped. It's a very
Good.
convenient pattern and it's easy to explain. It's like, okay, how do we do more? We had, it wasn't our best month. The last June was our highest month we've ever had, but July was a little bit lower, but it was still a very good month, mind you. But for instance, we had a certain amount of overtime, we had a certain amount of labor hours, and the instinct has been when we can't hit a certain gross margin percentage, which we have a set goal, has been okay, we need to raise costs. Powder costs have gone up, electricity costs have gone up, um, rent has gone up, everything
Is going
inflation,
up.
right? Like it always does. So, okay, we need to increase our prices. Let's figure out who we can increase prices on, and how fast we can do it and how what that will do. But the metrics that I'm running now are showing it's not a cost issue. It's a rework issue.
Wow.
We are spending too much time fixing problems
Hmm.
that is eating into our revenue.
Wow. So your cost of poor quality is
Exactly.
tracking and how do you track cost of poor quality? Is it labor and materials you're tracking on the
Yeah.
rework?
So the materials is harder to do for some of our product lines. Like it's very difficult to get an accurate understanding of how much like chrome flake or hydrochloric acid a part has been exposed to. Um, which I know there are companies that do it. We haven't gotten that far. But powder costs were very specific, and then we have arrived at an overhead cost
Mm.
for labor that takes into account, okay, how much does the electricity cost? How much does payroll cost, et cetera.
Like a fully loaded labor shop rate. Yeah.
Right. So we have that, the powder costs, and any outsourcing costs that are needed. So we've a lot of these new product lines, we've had to do more outsourcing because the equipment that we're going to use to service those markets isn't quite live yet. So we're kind of selling before we are 100% ready to get there, but it's been working.
Yeah.
So
So that's pretty cool. A lot of people in the industry, if they're missing the data, what they do is kind of what you hinted at is like, hey, our margins aren't as good as we want them to be. Okay, well, here's all of our part prices in our portfolio. We need to make, 5 or 10 more points, right? To get our target. So we're
10%.
just
That's
price
not
increase
the problem. Yeah.
everything.
But that's not necessarily the problem. Like our problem is not pricing, it's efficiency. That
Yeah,
requires completely different tactics to solve.
right. And then you don't risk churning good customers. Like that's the risk of like if you just crank all the prices up, well, then maybe
You
you
can't
lose
push
some
those
great customers.
forever.
Right, right. So you can't really charge them for your mistakes in a way. And then Dina, I know you mentioned, so you spoke at one of our revenue Riptide events about or maybe you mentioned this. I actually wasn't there. I was having our second baby during the last revenue Riptide. But what I heard from my colleagues is that you had an idea of like the idle parts idea. Do you want to explain where that came from and what the outcome has been?
Sure. It started with my previous job. They used to have what they called a war room, which is a very overblown name for a meeting that happens on a regular schedule of business where they just talk about the problems, the problem parts, either parts that have sat around for too long, parts that we've reworked too many times, parts that are expected to be expedited, that kind of thing. And they used to have that war room meeting every day. Um, at Precision, we already have so many meetings. I'm not trying to add another. People need to go and do their jobs, not just talk about doing their jobs. So
Right, right.
we started having twice a week slow moving parts meeting. And we go through things that are on quality hold in Steelhead, any returns that are currently running through the system, where they are, what they need, because those are always going to be hot. They're always going to be a problem. We've already done something wrong on them. So attention needs to be paid. And then anything that sits still for too long. And how long too long is has changed dramatically over the course of the time that I've been tracking it because we have just way more work. It used to be there was a period where our lead times had dropped, like in the rotor side, we were returning rotors OEMs in like a week, and we were returning used parts in like 2 to 3. Um,
Oh.
Partially because there was less demand.
Mm.
Actually, mostly because there was less demand. Now we have so much demand. There's almost 400 rotors in this facility. That's the most we've ever had by, I don't know, that's double what we were rocking last year at this time. I think
Wow.
end of July we had 90 rotors in-house. So obviously we were turning them at an incredibly fast rate. Now we
Mhm.
have stuff that has to sit and wait because everyone is sending their parts to us. It's one of those problems you want to have.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's almost it's a good problem to have. But how have the customers reacted to that? Those
I mean, they don't love it. They don't love the extended lead times, but we have done a good enough job at our quality and communication and managing our prices that they don't want to go anywhere else, even if
mm,
we're taking longer. So there are some customers that are very lead time specific, and sometimes we can't meet their expectations and they have to go somewhere else. It is what it is. There are enough that want the quality that we provide and the communication that we provide that we don't have a problem filling our lanes, which is a great position to be in. The question started with slow moving parts. Right. So I had asked when we first implemented Steelhead for a report, like a custom report that just showed all the work orders and how long they had gone since they'd moved the last time. Because that way you could filter and find, okay, this part has been sitting for 2 weeks. Why? What is wrong with it? It's been sitting for 48 hours and it's expedited. That's bad. We have only 4 days. That's the half the lead time. Let's go. So I had explained that to the Steelhead team. They'd made me a custom report, which was great. We loved it. We used it. It had dropped, I think the metric, this was last year, obviously, so we had way less backlog, but it had dropped our average like dock to dock time. Gosh, what was the number? I put it on that presentation. It had dropped it like
yeah.
to a third of what it was or something
I think it's
ridiculous
like
like that.
27 to 7 days or something.
Yeah, something like that. Which is it's very average. So it's some things are much longer, some things are much shorter. But it was a huge accomplishment. We were very excited about it. And then when I mentioned that at the Revenue Riptide, your team performed a very rapid miracle and made it available to everyone, which I thought was really incredible. So it's in the watchtower where you can just filter by what hasn't moved for the longest.
Yep.
Huge convenience for me and people on my team who are looking for parts that sit around. Because I mean, a lot of the time, the majority of your work is rolling through the shop, no problem. Like you don't have an issue, it just goes. But if there's anything that moves it outside of the lanes, and it gets missed, you might have a part that's just sitting in dust, like hiding beneath a rack, put to the side, stacked under another box, and it
Hmm.
gets lost. And that's basically solved this problem for us entirely.
Wow. And you get the emails too? I think you have there's an ability to get an email after X amount of
We
hours too.
haven't we haven't really used that so much just because our lead times change are so different between business
Mhm.
units. So
Got it.
some where the expectation is like a week to 10 days. We have some where the expectation is 2 weeks. We have some where our lead times are out to almost 10 weeks.
Oh wow.
So we can't really set an across the board if it's spent more than 24 hours idle screen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not effective. So it has to be looked at manually, but we do it twice a week. It's not a big deal.
Awesome. And then Dina, one thing I remember talking to you, I think years ago, or it's either you or John, but the job costing data when it comes to like repricing parts or like handling because no one wants to raise the price on the customer if you don't have to, like you mentioned. If you can fix it with internal processes, great. Because when you raise the price, it's obviously the sensitive thing is the customer might go somewhere else, right? So how have you handled that conversation with your sales team or with your customer just to be like very transparent to gain their trust and to charge a fair price for the service?
Yeah, so we have different tactics for chrome and for carbide. And that's I'll explain the reasons for that. So for on the chrome side, it's largely been just inflationary. Like we did have early on, when John and I first started here, we had to make some big changes to prices, just because they dropped so low, given the demand during COVID, that we had to make serious corrections. And that was hard for a lot of people to adjust to, but we've gotten there. But we do a lot of pricing that is dependent on how much repair is required.
Mm,
And we have been flexible as to what the customer has required. So, like for instance, we have some customers that want they want actuals, but they are willing to accept an invoice without a PO being adjusted. So at the end of the job, we can go in and say like, okay, so we had to weld it for 2 hours. We had to prep and deal with the damage underneath the previous coating for another 8 hours. And we have averages in terms of how much chrome thickness is normal. Um,
hmm
and then every so amount of thousandths above that, we add a charge to it. So if something needs 50 thou per side, that's going to be in our chrome tank for like 5 days.
Wow.
It's there forever. If something needs 7 per side, it's like a 12-hour situation because you only
Mhm.
get like a thou and a half per hour ish.
Mhm.
And we run 24/7, but it's still like it occupies space and that can be expensive in terms of opportunity cost. So we upcharge based on thickness requirement, we upcharge based on hours of repair required. And that our customers understand that. They don't
Mhm.
have to have a giant sticker shock because these are very large parts. So I'm talking we have things that are like 20 feet long, up to 30 feet long in the 30-foot tanks. They're like giant bars of steel. They're huge. So any repair work and chrome work and processing, they're expensive. So if you have a price list that is all in cost, that all in cost may be $8,000. But if you split it up, it's like, okay, if it's within normal parameters, it's going to be 5 grand. We're going to add this much for hours of additional repair. We're going to add this much for hours additional in Chrome. The transparency, they like that. They're comfortable with that. They all trust us um, to do right by them and give them a quality part for a reasonable amount of money. Um, And then when we need to up it, it's usually a matter of, okay, electricity has gone up, insurance has gone up. Here's a list of all the things that have increased in price. We absorbed them for X amount of time. Now we have to pass some of it on to you. But generally, there's some back and forth, but it's not a big deal. It's been harder for thermal spray. I don't know how much time you guys have spent looking at the price of tungsten over the last.
I've heard about it. I've heard about it. It's gone crazy. Yeah.
Right. So tungsten carbide went from $30 a pound for our normal powders to it peaked at over $200 a pound
Wow.
this year. And then we're back down to reasonable. I mean, it's not reasonable. It's still like 5 times the price that it was last year, but it's stabilized. And
Mhm.
we had no choice. We had to pass that cost on. But all of our customers were getting the same
Yeah.
information from every vendor and everyone they spoke to. So at a certain point, there was a lot of arbitrage happening where like somebody had an amount of powder that they had at a previous cost and they could keep prices down for a little bit longer. But eventually it all equaled out. So we've been transparent on why the costs are going up. And that's usually been enough that our customers have accepted it.
Awesome. And I see that across our customer base and everyone I've really talked to across even all types of metal finishing is that like if you can deliver the on the lead times, if you have great quality and you charge a fair price, like you can't be the lowest cost person. It just doesn't work. You also
Right.
can't charge, an insane amount. But if you just charge a fair price, the customers typically say, got it, makes sense. One thing we've seen actually work extremely well, Dina, is like if you can, like sometimes if you look at a part number and it actually is too high, the price was maybe it took quicker than expected. Um, Actually lowering some prices is a great way to say like, hey, we're just trying to charge the fair price here. Have you guys ever lowered prices for customers?
We have a couple, and these are customers that, like I said, they accept price changes on the invoice and don't require
A quote, everything.
additional purchase orders, quotes, approvals, that kind of stuff, where we've gone to actuals for them. So we'll estimate how much we think it's going to take. And then if it ends up being lower at the end, we have been willing to adjust down. Um, it's sort of a customer by customer thing. We're willing to do it sort of across the board, but then the customer has to run the risk of, okay, maybe the estimate was too conservative and it's actually more expensive than we thought it was going to be.
Right.
It depends on how our customer, what risks they want to take, how they want us to proceed. We've been extremely flexible on a customer by customer basis on how they want us to manage that. And we find that that helps because, I mean, if you're working with Halliburton, they don't have time to go back and forth getting approvals over and over again. And their system is extremely picky on making sure things match. So for
Mm.
them, we have some Halliburton international customers where we just do an all-in price. And it's
Oh,
higher, for sure. It's much higher, but they're paying for the convenience of not getting multiple emails asking for permission for things.
got it.
So it
Speed
moves
is,
faster.
yeah, makes sense.
And
Um,
if that is valuable, we'll go and do that.
yeah. And Dina, what is so maybe looking back a couple of years to say you had to go, give a message to your previous self 2, 3 years ago, or someone brand new to Steelhead or brand new to the industry, like what would you say is like the most like say they're hopping into a strategic business operations, maybe an ownership role or a leadership role, and they're pretty naive or ignorant to all the things that you know or learned. What would you say is like the most important, maybe top one or two or three KPIs to really be like just dialed in on
Yeah.
to make sure they have a successful outcome for their business?
If I was to focus on KPIs specifically, cost of poor quality is huge, and do it as a percent of revenue. So you're not just tracking like how much cost you're spending, but as a factor of what you're shipping. Because it if that percentage keeps going up, it's a different message than
Hmm.
you're maintaining a same percentage across the board. It's like, okay, you can't do more than less than 2%. But if you keep going up and it's 2% this month, 3% next month, and 4% the month after that, you've got a problem. Um,
Right.
and there are other people at the company that spend more time on some of the financials. So, like gross margin, obviously, it's hugely important. Whether or not we hit our budgeted revenue number, hugely important. But if you're looking at how to fix problems inside the company, cost of poor quality, um, equipment uptime, um, which I haven't talked about very much, and labor efficiency. So equipment uptime we measure by like if a machine is down, it gets marked red on a spreadsheet, and then at the end of the month we calculate what percentage of possible labor hours those machines were available for. Because if your machines aren't running, then you're not getting any money off of them. Um,
Right.
you might be spending a huge amount of effort trying to fix them, but you're not getting revenue. And then labor efficiency, uh, are your margins going to be accurate? Are your people clocking in properly? Are they skipping steps? Are they making mistakes? Do I need to do retraining? So those three kind of between the three of them, you can answer a lot of questions about where things are going awry in your shop.
Yeah, and labor efficiency is like, hey, Dina worked 40 hours and she clocked how many hours to jobs
Correct.
inside of that 40. Got it. What do you typically see for a labor efficiency number?
I don't want to tell you. We've only been tracking that for a few months, and it's great in some of our departments and not so good in others. So, like for our rotor polishers, which are like one man, one machine attended kind of situations, they're like close to 80%, which great. And that includes setup, but doesn't include like their lunch hours and stuff like that. So that's a very reasonable amount, is we think.
Yeah.
But some of our ones where it's a person that's attending to multiple tanks and it's more based on dwell time, we're kind of toying with how we want to measure that because maybe it needs to be measured on capacity utilization instead.
Yeah.
And that's like, we have all this data, but we're still deciding what measurements best serve us. So that's
Hmm.
kind of the continuous improvement that we're working through. How can we get our systems to provide us with data that we can use better? And how can we use that data to make things easier for our operators to hit our customers' deadlines? Kind of the whole plan.
Got it. And the on-time delivery you said is improving. That's obviously a key KPI as well.
Yeah.
On the labor utilization for the lines, you can actually log into a line. So you don't have to log into a tank if an operator is
We
running many.
talked about that. We
So that
talked
could be
about
one thing.
adjusting the way that we log in. We actually had a meeting about that earlier this week.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
We've also talked
Um,
about using racking to help fix it, all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna adjust how we measure that for sure, but deciding how is still in discussion.
Awesome. So, Dina, that sounds like it's quite the amazing story in terms of had a little bit of a drilling issue, diversified actively, restructured, got it new equipment, new labor. The sales team went out and filled that capacity. And now you guys are at, I think he's mentioned a record month in June, and great record on-time deliveries in July. So, like things are really going. I would say seems like perfectly, obviously, here from Minnesota, looking outside, looking in. But obviously, there's a ton of hard work and talent being applied every day, every hour down there. What does the future look like for precision spray? Say you zoom ahead 12, 24, 36 months. Do you guys have an idea of like where is this all going?
Yeah, I mean, we're still actively adding to what we can provide to our customers. Like we're always looking for, okay, we can do these five things. What makes sense to add to provide more services to our customers? Like I talked about the plasma spray. We're expanding into another building. Within a couple of weeks, we'll have
Wow.
another facility online. We're looking at other industries that we can service using the same functions. So chrome and carbide wear and corrosion resistance, that can be used in a lot of different ways. We've never really touched so much on aerospace.
Mm,
So we've thought about doing that. That would require NADCAP, that kind of thing. We haven't had enough demand there to really go for an ad cap, but we don't have the capacity to do it right now. So as we increase our capacity, which we're always looking to do, um, what else can we use to fill those gaps?
wow.
More mining. We've never talked about automotive, and maybe we're in the wrong location for that because most of that's up where you guys are.
Hmm.
But is that something we want to get into? So there's always more customers we can touch if we want to, but we have a really nice moat around the customers we currently have, and we intend to maintain it.
To maintain the growth, or
Yeah.
actually maybe even step on the gas pedal a little bit harder. Well, Dina, thanks for joining us. You guys are running a world-class operation. You tell John I said hi as well. And thanks for your time. And we'll be here to support you guys in the next phase of Precision Spray's journey.
Love to hear it.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you
Dina.
for having me.
Yep. See ya.